Hello, I am Sarah Van Mosel from SiriusXM, and I am here with Brie Garcia from the Nikki and Brie Show. Welcome to Cannes.
Thank you.
So excited to have you.
Yes, it's been very exciting being here.
So the Nikki and Brie Show is an amazing podcast that we've been working with forever, and we're so happy to have you. I just want to ask you a few questions now that we're sort of it's Sport Beach here in Cannes, right?
Yeah.
What lessons have you brought from your career at the WWE that apply in your podcasting life?
You know, Nikki and I feel like the biggest thing that we've brought is just being authentic. I feel like as WWE superstars and reality stars, and especially reality stars who opened up the door for women's wrestling and pop culture, I feel like the one thing that I feel like at the time and still to this day that everyone loved was how relatable we were.
Yeah.
I felt like it was really a fresh breath there, and Nikki and I knew that we wanted to bring that same thing to the podcast, being relatable, which when you listen, sometimes it's TMI, but we do open up about our marriages, being mothers, being career women, the things that we failed at, the things that are working, and that every week there's something hard going on in our lives, but there's always a way around it and to figure it out.
Yeah. Tell me about the amount of athleticism that's involved in being in the WWE and how you sort of engage with athleticism now.
You know, there's a lot. It's funny because I feel like people always see wrestlers get really mad when they're like, it's fake. And it's like, it's story driven. Yes, we have predetermined finishes, but we are physically going through the moves. And when you think about it, not only are we being physical, we're being like stunt people, but you do have to be athletic. And at the same time, as you're being athletic, we're telling a story. We're a character. So it's like a Broadway with body slams. So, you know, like we physically are working and mentally. There's a lot going on all at once. But that's the beauty of WWE is the fact that we are sports and we are entertainment. And I feel like athletics, I played soccer. I was in club soccer. And I think that's what helped me a lot with wrestling was the balance, the determination, motivation, teamwork. And I feel like everything I learned in sports and being athletic has helped me as an entrepreneur and in worlds of podcasting and all of it.
Yeah. And so how has hosting a podcast with your sister really allowed you to re-explore your passions, whether they be athleticism or other things in your life?
I feel like it's your voice on audio, which I absolutely love, is heard more and you get to explain yourself. So instead of being in some interviews where I feel like I have to give a 3-word answer, in a podcast you get to hear actually someone really speak from the heart. And I feel like so many times when Nikki and I are interviewing people or when her and I are talking, people really feel what that person went through. And I think that's what's really important for Nikki and I, of women in sports, is to hear their stories. I want to know how they persisted to get to where they at. Like, what was it inside them that kept driving them to not give up? And so podcasts allow to really get that 10-page answer instead of the 3 words.
And you have young children.
Yes.
How do you integrate sports into their lives as their mom?
You know, I feel like at times I'm like, am I a soccer mom? But you know, like teamwork. I feel like teamwork, my kids, it's like, and I was always telling them like, practice makes perfect. You're not going to get it right the first time. No one ever did. And I feel like, and that goes into doing arts and crafts. That goes into them learning how to read. It's not just has to be with athletics, but I feel like I have taken everything I was taught as an athlete and knowing like, it takes a lot to win a championship. It takes a lot to make it to the next level. And I feel like I take all those different little things into my children's lives, but it helps.
Yeah, and teaching them resiliency
Oh
and
my
all
God.
of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And drive. I think drive is so important. I feel like as athletes, we are driven people and we might be born with it or we might teach ourselves at a young age being on sports teams. I'm not sure, but drive, yes.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about authenticity, and I know that when we've worked with you on brand collaborations, that's always been a really important aspect of partnering you up with the exact right brand. What do you look for in a brand partner? What's important to you in an ideal partnership with a brand?
So I love when a brand comes to us, and one, it's something that when you go to my house and you're in my everyday life, you see that I actually use the product, that I actually believe in it. I never want to sell anyone something I don't believe in, and I think people get that from Nikki and I. But also I love when when we collaborate or brands come to us and they want to be inspiring, because I feel like the time that I really get hooked on ads or I really feel connected is when there's some type of inspiration that they're hitting me with in the messaging.
And you have a long history of being in front of the camera, in front of crowds of like thousands and thousands of people. How is audio different? Like, what's the shift in your mind when you're doing audio, when you're doing a podcast, you're sitting with your sister and you're talking to someone? How does your brain kind of change from the way you have to be when you're on camera and in front of folks?
You know, it's crazy. I think it's such an intimate setting when you're recording a podcast. So I feel like you're more vulnerable, you open up more. Because even reality television, we had like 5 cameras. Like, I was giving birth and there's a camera, and I'm getting married, there's a camera. You know, there's these moments I put on television. But when you're podcasting, I can, even though now everyone sees social clips, but I was in my PJs in the beginning. I was so raw and real, and and podcasting allows you to live in that moment and be so present and truly what you're feeling. And I think that's why Nikki and I connected so well with podcasting, because we're open books, but at the same time, like, we're very like emotional people, and podcasting allows us to be emotional in those ways.
Yeah. And speaking of emotional, I have a sister as well. What's it like working with your sister day in and day out, as you have throughout all these years?
I absolutely love it. I mean, there's times where I'm like, we're acting like we're the 15-year-old sisters fighting. Let's go back to being 40 for a second. But no, I love it. You know, the one thing, and you probably feel this with your sister, is there's no BS. She wants the best for me. So everything that she will tell me, if it's constructive criticism or she'll pay me a compliment, it comes from such a great place, and I can trust her. And Nikki does. She'll see like days where it's a hard day for me. She knows how to motivate me. She knows how to like switch it. And I feel really blessed. We have been partners since the womb. Like, we came into this world together, and I feel so lucky that throughout, living, I've been able to do everything with her.
Yeah. One last question before we have to wrap it up. I know that you've been a strong sort of role model for women and young girls as a performer, as an athlete in front of the camera, but also now that you're in this stage of motherhood, you're married, you're sort of in a new life stage. How are you modeling yourself for women and young girls? What is it that you want to sort of bring across to them? What's important for you to make sure they understand about why you're here and why you do the stuff you do?
Yeah, I feel like it took me a really long time to find my voice. And I feel like, maybe it was based on confidence and not ever being sure that my opinions mattered, that what I truly was passionate about like meant something. And I think as young women, we constantly judge what we're doing. We are constantly like, was that right? Like, we're people pleasers in a way. It's like we're born as people pleasers. And I'm doing it with my daughter. I'm like, you don't always have to make everyone happy. If someone says hi to you and then it's a complete stranger and you don't feel comfortable saying hi, you don't have to. Like, I'm trying to flip the script for her so that she at a young age can be strong and confident in everything she does. And that she feels so great of the person she is that social media won't make her feel any different. And I wasn't raised with social media. You weren't raised with social media. So for me, it's letting the young girls know, like, there is life outside social media. Like, you guys are in it, and I can't imagine growing up with it and feeling the comparisons and being judged and getting the bullying that's on, online. But it's helping them to just be bigger than it and just have the confidence to ignore all that. Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for doing the show, for being here with us today. And if anyone has not subscribed to the Nikki and Brie show, do it. You won't regret it. It's an amazing show. And thank you so much. It's Sarah from SiriusXM. Take care.